the Leadership Table Podcast. I'm Dr. Kevin Hairston, and I am glad you are with me today. We have an exciting show, and so, as always, we invite you to come to the table where we bring together leaders who are making an impact not only on our city, but our state and our country. And we are privileged today to have with us the 2025 CEO Leadership of the Year awardee, Ms. Kate Bauer of Leadership Columbus. Kate, thank you for joining us here at the Leadership Table.
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity.
No, we appreciate not only you being here, but what you're doing for our city. Let's jump right into it. For those who may not be familiar with you, because there's a lot of people who perhaps are in that lane, but because you're in the leadership development lane, what prompted you to get into this area or this particular industry?
Yeah, so, my background's in leadership development. That was my first career at Big Lots and then over at NiSource. And then I had roles in community engagement, so distributing philanthropic funds for organizations, both with Columbia Gas of Ohio and Cover My Meds. But when I was with Columbia Gas of Ohio, I went through the Leadership Columbus program, and I loved every second of it. And when I thought about that organization, what I said to myself was, I would love to run that organization. I would be so good at running that organization. And it wasn't meant to be at the moment. Obviously, I went to Cover My Meds, but when this opportunity came back around, I jumped at the chance, and honestly, I love running this organization, and I'm really good at running this organization. So it took me a moment, but it all came full circle because, my background in community and leadership development is really serves me well in this capacity. And then, one of my, if you're familiar with Strengths Finders, but one of my strengths is a maximizer. And so helping people identify or maximize their potential to be the best that they can.
Let me ask you this question. This could be 101 leadership development, but I read a book years ago. It was called Making of a Leader, and I can't think of the gentleman's name. It's right off the tip of my tongue. But one of the arguments that some people make is that whether or not leaders are born or leaders are made. Because you've been in the lane so long and you've experienced leadership, you've developed as a leader, you help other people develop. Do you see instincts where people that came out the womb, they are made to be a leader, or do you feel like leadership is cultivated?
It's a yes and. I mean, for me, I believe that you're going to be a leader in something. What are you interested in when you're younger? What did you step up and do? Did you want to be a pastor? What are your passions and how are you going to lean into it? And I think some people are quiet leaders, right? There's the idea of somebody's got the big idea, they're the leader, but it's really the next person that comes along that creates a movement, that creates a leader. And so I think people lead in different ways. Maybe you're loud and you're the up here leader, but I do believe that everyone in their own right. And in which capacity are you a leader? So maybe that's just, the maximizer in me. Mm-hmm. But I think there is also a cultivation. And that's part of what we do, which is, leaders come into our program, and we can talk about it a little bit just in case people don't know, but they already come in with their own skills and resources. They're already leaders in their own right, but they go through the program to ensure that they're the most effective and impactful leaders that they can be where they are in their organization, in their community, in their networks. So, I think there is a cultivation piece as well to stay on top of it.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because you mentioned how people come into your program and they're already leaders respectfully in their own fields. Does your organization help to bring out more insightful, I guess, help them sharpen their skills even better to become better leaders in their field?
Yes. So the program that we're most well known for is our signature program, which is a 10-month program focusing on opportunities and resources in the city and strengths of our city. Each program day, once per month, is focused on something different. So we have Government Day, we have Education Day, we have Arts and Culture, and then they also work in groups on a community impact project with a nonprofit. But what I like to say, I kind of liken it to if you're going to be a manager at a restaurant, You're going to come in, you're going to inherently know, how to run that restaurant. You're going to have, maybe some transferable skills. But if you take the time to, cook for a week, wash dishes for a week, bartend for a week, and you really just get all of those different aspects for that restaurant, you're going to be the best restaurant manager that they ever had. And so that's a little bit of what I think about Leadership Columbus. We already have these leaders coming in their own right, and they've done really incredible things, probably already engaged, but now they're really just understanding a little bit better about how our city works and what's happening in our city in different areas, meeting people. And I have people who come through the program that have lived in Columbus their whole life. Without fail, they say, I learned something new that I didn't know about this city.
That's good.
Every program day.
That's good. Now, as a person who helps develop leaders, I mean, is there any point? Because I can imagine, I don't know if you like to cook, but I like to cook, and my wife and daughter would maybe debate some of my dishes, but there are moments when you feel like you have a specialty, and so you evaluate your cooking based upon maybe perhaps where you ate at a restaurant or maybe perhaps ate somewhere else. At least I do that. As a person who helps develop other leaders, are there moments where you feel as though you cannot turn it off on how you evaluate someone's leadership? I mean, can you be looking at someone and go, "Oh God, this person, they're in trouble," or perhaps this person has a lot of potential?
Right. Maybe that's occupational hazard, right? Being in leadership. What we talked about, I do focus on someone's potential. You need to help them see it themselves. But yeah, I'd be lying if I didn't say sometimes, you can't make everyone happy, right? And some parts of that program are challenging, and they're challenging you to step out of your comfort zone, step out of, the people that you usually talk with, your community, your neighbors, like really just step out and do something new. And some people are really uncomfortable with that. And so you have to push right there and say, can we get them across the line to, open up to this new experience and lean in? And so I think that's kind of the evaluation that I do when you see someone who's still kind of standoffish or they're uncomfortable being faced with, I don't want to give too much away about program days if anyone takes it, but uncomfortable being faced with some of the realities of our city or how people might be living and what they're going to do with that information, and can they lean in or are they resistant to it because they haven't had that exposure before.
Now, let me ask you this, because we have a variety or various amount of individuals who perhaps will be watching this. As a woman leading the organization, did you ever face any type of pushback in terms of your leadership because maybe perhaps you were changing the paradigm of what leadership may have looked like in the past?
Not at Leadership Columbus. It was previously run by a woman, and so no, I never received that feedback. But I would say in previous roles, I think there's a pressure to be a little more perfect and prove yourself, and being treated sometimes in a way that, like you are the youngest person in the room, and you are the person that has least experience, and so, it's a different space leading as a woman, but. Not at Leadership Columbus. It's been good for me, but that may also be, when I have an incredible board, and when I joined, the board chair was a woman, very incredible woman, super supportive. So I've always had really strong women backing me as well. And we talked earlier, serving on the board at Dress for Success Columbus was really powerful for me and all the women around that table as well.
Right. Because and the reason why I ask that is because I can only imagine leading an organization in which you may have, or at least the dynamics of the environment may have pushed back some of those types of stereotypes or some of those type of biases. But do you feel as though Leadership Columbus is preparing men and women of different races, different genders, different ages, for preparing for leadership when they graduate from the program, and they're entering into a world where some of those biases exist?
Yes, I mean we have portions in our opening retreat that focus on specifically DEI and how people lead in that space, but also we are targeting to ensure that we have a diverse class both in race, gender, sectors. We have tuition assistance for nonprofit partners. We have a diversity scholarship. So our goal is to also, not just at the opening retreat, but to weave throughout how do you lead in your specific space, sector, who you are, So yes, I do believe that we focus on that. And even some of the days are, we recognize that it can bring up a lot of feelings and people can have a lot of feelings about it. And so we ensure that we end the days, especially the hard ones, with a debrief and a conversation about how people felt in those moments, and ensure that they're leaving that day feeling heard and understood, and being able to voice some of the challenges that they faced, not just in the day, but as a whole.
Yeah, and I can imagine too, hearing from alumni after they graduated from the program and they went back to their respective organizations as to whether or not, I mean, they're introducing new concepts and new thought processes that maybe perhaps their employer wasn't anticipating. And so, have you heard from any alumni that said, "Hey, I've got some positive feedback from my employer," or I've got maybe not so positive feedback based upon they wasn't ready for some of these ideas that I brought to the table?
I think they're ready. A lot of people know who Leadership Columbus is. Some organizations send them year over year. I think the most surprising thing is more recently what we are trying to do is send them back with a summary and resources so they can talk about their experience, because I think previously it was, oh, they went to a program day, that was great. And what we're trying to send them back with is, what did you learn about the city? How is that going to change how you're going to show up here? What does that mean for you in your community or in your workplace? And we encourage them to have those conversations with their leaders when they come back.
No, I appreciate that. As a pastor, one of the things that I always kind of had an intersection of conversation with, especially when it came to the business community, was as to their responsibility to give back, either individually or corporatively, as an organization, because I always felt like, hey, as an individual, you didn't arrive at whatever position you are in all by yourself.
No.
That there was community, there was family, there was a supportive group that helped build you out. And then from even a corporate perspective, I go, does the corporate community have a sense or a responsibility of giving back because its constituents continue to at least support them as customers? Does Leadership Columbus talk about that give back? I mean, in terms of, as a leader, your job is not just to, work for your employer, but to entice a level of give back along the way in terms of what qualifies you as a leader.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that I can pinpoint on this one is our community impact project that we assign. So we get applications from nonprofits, and it's not, I don't think it's volunteer. I mean, it's volunteer work, but to me, it's getting professional consultants that you normally wouldn't be able to afford to tackle a problem that at the organization and come up with a sustainable solution. And so groups of 5 or 6, and they work directly with nonprofits over the 10 months, and they really do use their skills to make the community a better place. And that is inherent in the program. When people apply, I will say, I hope you didn't just apply for you.
Right.
I hope it's not just about you. I hope you applied because you want to figure out how you can be the most impactful in your community, how you can be the most impactful in your workplace. And you're here for that piece as well, to see how you can maximize that strength.
Yeah. Because even again, my lane has always been nonprofit and faith community, in some respects, part of the business community. But one of the things, Kate, I've always, again, I was asking you earlier, is there something, a part of you that somehow as a cook, you just can't turn off when you enter somebody else's kitchen? And a lot of times when I see, different things, whether or not it's in the media or just different things personally, and I'll see a leader do something and I go, oh man, this is how maybe I would have handled it. Mm-hmm. And I remember years ago, when a large airline had a problem with perhaps asking a passenger to get off the plane, and he didn't get off the plane, and,
right.
and he was forced off the plane. And for most of us, we know the end story. But I remember that CEO's response, and then their response again, and then their response again, and then probably about the 4th time they got it right. And I kept thinking to myself, who's in his corner helping him give advice, because he just led by a bad example. And so when I look at leadership today and I look at leadership development, I'm thinking to myself, are these leaders being trained with emotional intelligence, some level of empathy, some level of sensitivity, that their knee-jerk reaction is to care about the customer, their clientele, or the people they're serving, or is there always the financial bottom line in the back of their head that drives their outward response? And so by the time we see the fourth response, it's really because of the pushback from the public. And so, I guess my question has to do with, in your opinion, are leaders really navigating? Are you seeing leaders coming through your program who are navigating to the point of learning a level of empathy, or is the bottom line the bottom line?
Are you saying, is it performative? Like, are they coming in and they're caring about nonprofits because they feel like they should?
Because they should,
Yeah,
because and I would say this, and perhaps depending on who you're talking to, I get in trouble. But I would say I've come across a lot of business leaders who from a public relations perspective might care about community, but then behind the scenes may not have that level of empathy. And so I'm going, do the two walk together in terms of not necessarily a responsibility of giving back in everything you do, but that knee-jerk reaction? Is it a sincere care, or is it always based upon a public image or a public relations perspective?
Yeah, I mean, often when you think about even nonprofit budgets can fall under marketing, right? You can get funding from there. But as somebody who was in the space where, corporate and philanthropy crossed, I think there's a way to serve both, and that's the beauty of having someone in that spot. So I have a lot of empathy, but how do you create value both for the organization and for the community? And it's that conscious capitalism idea of, can you invest in something that serves both so that they can support and lift each other up? I don't want to speak directly to business leaders and their level of empathy, because you see it both ways, and you do. Maybe it's performative for some people. For Leadership Columbus and the people that go through that's part of the exposure to the different pieces and opportunities in Columbus, is to evoke that empathy. The proximity is going to give you, the insight into what you're not seeing. And so if they don't already have that sort of empathetic piece, yes, we are fostering that in the program by exposing them, introducing them, having them talk with people they might not speak with before. So it's just, we're fostering that empathy, and it's proximity.
No, I think that's great. I think that's great because I think that's how you cultivate that level of empathy, is exposing people. So I can appreciate you saying that. What do you think the role? I mean, you're alumni.
Yes.
Do you think
Class of 2017, best class
okay,
ever.
2017?
I'm not allowed to say that anymore. I can't, every class is the best class. I'm not allowed to say,
No, I think that's great because I think each class, I can only imagine every graduating class has its own pride in terms of, hey, I'm a graduate, look at me. But what responsibility do you think alumni play in terms of Leadership Columbus's even future, even as it navigates and continues to push forward? Do alumni just kind of pick up the certificate and go, thanks, man, it's been great? Or do you see them making a contribution back to the program?
They do make a contribution. We often see that, I talked about the community impact projects. We often see that some of them join the board after that, or the project is done, but they want to keep working on it and they stay in that. So we see that. And it used to be that they did take a certificate and walk away. Each class would stay really tight knit to their own class, or specifically the people that they worked on projects with. I'm still friends with the people I was on my project with. That's what you often hear. But there's also now, we've launched the alumni program, and we're trying to foster across different classes opportunities to get involved in the community, opportunities to continue to develop, opportunities to learn about. We're working on now is you went through the program, you saw let's just say the state of education or where education was. And even with me, where was education when I went through in 2017? That looks very different now than it did. Here we are in 2026 and post pandemic and technology, et cetera. And so, we're trying to keep alumni up to date and having them revisit a little bit of their experience. But yeah, we do see most of the leaders that come out of the program are highly engaged in the community, and they go on to often join boards. But now we can also foster that with our new program.
That's good. That's good. Let me ask you this question. And let me put it behind a situation that happens to me quite often is, Kate, when I'm talking with young people, and I remember in particular this one situation where I was talking to these young guys, and I asked them what did they want to be when they grew up, and one of the guys, a young guy, matter of fact, I think he was maybe in the ninth grade, and he says, "I want to be Michael Jordan. I want to be just like Michael Jordan." And I said, "Okay," and I said, "That's a tall order, And but I asked him, I said, "Kate, I said, do you want to be Michael Jordan because of his notoriety? Do you want to be Michael Jordan because of his wealth, or do you want to be Michael Jordan because of his basketball IQ?" And so, the young boy said, "I want to be Michael Jordan because of his basketball IQ, And so I said, "What team do you play for?" He says, "I don't play." I said, "What team are you about to play for?" He says, "Well, I may perhaps."
Right.
And so I said to him, I said, "I think it's wonderful that you have this role model in your mind, but in order to be like him, you'll have to develop his work ethic. You have to develop, Michael said that he played every day after school while his friends hung out. He was doing XYZ in terms of helping to become the ball player he is today." And so when you think about leaders and emerging leaders, and they come to you and they say, "Kate, I just want to be the most dynamic leader in my organization. I disguise the limit for my career." What advice would you give to that emerging leader that may perhaps not sit on any boards just yet, may perhaps not be at the top of their career line or chain? What advice would you give to that emerging leader that says, I just want to be the best that I can possibly be?
Yeah. I'll speak from what I think is the most important. It's living in alignment with who you are. And I think even the most difficult things where sometimes you feel that you have nothing and you're a little bit laid bare is what's left. And that's going to give you the clue as to what's next and what you're meant to take on next. And so living in alignment, remembering who you are at your core, those are going to be things that drive you. So even as you talk about, this basketball player who doesn't play basketball, intends to play basketball, there's also a commitment to that alignment and commitment to who you are and consistency. And so it's really about values-based leadership too. I even think about making tough decisions in hard times, which is, it's not necessarily that you have to have the right answer as a leader. You have to have consistency in your values. And so people trust what you're putting forth and they trust the solution that you're coming up with. And then you have to stand by that with the consistency. So you have to practice basketball all the time, right, if that's how you want to be, and ensure that that is in alignment with who you are.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. How do you see, you talked about DEI just a little while ago, and how do you see Leadership Columbus playing a role in kind of the rapidly changing landscape of not just Columbus, but, across our country? One moment, man, people are pounding their chests in terms of we need DEI. And then maybe in a blink of an eye, we see where companies are rolling back DEI. How does Leadership Columbus keep up with those changing paradigms?
We have not changed our policy on it. We are going to continue to live in a space where we're going to educate, support, ensure that we're offering, tools and resources so people can get through the program. We've not changed that. And I think that's, it's a tough topic because are people losing money, right? And they're scared to have it on their, different words on their websites, different pieces. And that's, lucky for us, we're not in that position. So I will say that. But, I think it requires leaders to be courageous right now, too. I think it's always I like to say sometimes when you ask me about like a tough question, like, oh, this person has, I say, I don't want to be on the wrong side of history. Right. And I'm not going to be. And also, as we said before, it doesn't align with my values to kind of back up. But courageous leadership is hard sometimes. And so I think that's what it requires right now.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Well, let me ask you this. In terms of you won 2025 CEO of the year, big applause for that.
Thank
That's
you.
huge because I can imagine all the other CEOs.
Oh my gosh, the names that I was with, like it was enough just to be nominated. I mean, I just incredible.
Well, I mean, I think that's a huge accomplishment. I mean, I think that there's a lot of people out there who may perhaps have done a great job, but those who are evaluating saw something inside of you. What's the drive? What's the push? What gets you up every morning to stay in that lane to make others recognize it?
Stay in the lane of leadership.
Yeah.
Well, it is the leaders that come through. I love seeing kind of the future of our city and feeling like I do my small part and ensuring that people are equipped to have the biggest impact. And also, more recently, we've launched the Impact Lab, which is leadership development for nonprofit teams that's targeted and thoughtful and sustainable. And so when we think about right now, when nonprofits are being asked to do so much more with less, where is our lane and where do we fit in? And we have found this where we can be really supportive in, lowering turnover, increasing morale, giving them the tools to coach and have people have a good, place to come. And so for me right now, it's strengthening the nonprofit sector, especially when things are so rocky right now. But it's just for love of the mission of developing these leaders. And it's not necessarily my quote, but I'm going to probably butcher it. But somebody gave me at one point in time, which is, it's irresponsible to not put forth these civically engaged community trustees for the future of our city. And even as we grow, there's going to be lots of people coming to the city who may need to lean on the nonprofit sector. And if they're not strong, then, how are we supporting the growth of our city? And so I do just see all these different tendrils of like or tentacles, I don't know what you call it, of where we fit in ensuring the strength of our, community and our nonprofits and our leaders.
Well, I mean, I think that's commendable because, as a person who's been in the nonprofit lane, for a lot of years, to have an organization say, hey, I want to come alongside you and help develop your skill sets, help introduce you to new resources, kind of make your organization sustainability. But I think it's great because never before, a lot of times nonprofits are operating in a wind by themselves. And I'm always having a conversation with someone about they just don't have the resources, as a Fortune 500 company. But to have someone say, hey, let's help shape you because you make a difference on our city, I think is applaudable.
Thank you. I mean, and we have gotten really great feedback. It's something that we feel has been needed for a long time. Nonprofits, to your point, often don't have the budget. And if they were to spend it on that, they might be criticized because it should all go toward the mission.
Right.
And for-profits, I mean, they'll spend thousands and thousands of dollars on people to go through like coaching programs, leadership programs, et cetera. And then you have nonprofits who have, we did the research. I don't know if it's current, but it was if they have the funding, it's $30 a person. Right? And there's good, really great tactical training out there for nonprofit leaders, which is, and it could be everything from, nonprofit board governance training or fundraising and things that are sorely needed. But the soft skills that organizations sorely need to ensure that they're, they have a strong team and a strong just so they can fulfill their mission, that they feel like they've got this support, a strong pipeline. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
So the future of the organization is set, and they can serve more people, and they can live aligned in their mission. And so it's a space that we really saw a need. And now that we're delivering it, the response has been overwhelming. Not just the requests for us to come do some training for them, but also when they come out of it, comments even like, this is the first time my team has really gotten together and sat in a room in a long time. And I didn't know this about this person. And just understanding the nuances of the team that you're working with every day.
Yeah. Well, I think, again, going back to the whole DI perspective, I think when even you talk about equity, and I'll be honest with you, Kate, I think a lot of times, especially from a nonprofit perspective, a lot of times we're not in the room because we didn't know the room existed. And so when you talk about the issue of equity, I would always ask the question like, wow, it seems like everybody in here knew about this other than me, so. But or maybe perhaps it's opposite. I knew about this, and others didn't know about it, maybe because of my relationships. So I think even from a nonprofit space, that equity plays a huge role in terms of let's leverage who's in the room and how we communicate about that the room exists so that we can see, and at least the people who are trying to benefit from our making our city better can benefit from all of this, because at the end of the day they help make our city better. But going back again to your award, I think that's outstanding, and you're recognized as a 2025 CEO of the year. Um, what's next for Kate? What's next for you in terms of like where do you go from 225? I mean, 2026 CEO. I mean, where do you go from a person who wins? What's upward look like?
Well, step one, be on your podcast. So we're already well on our way
There
to,
you go. There you go. That comes with the benefit of winning.
yeah. Awards, accolades, recognition are always great, but I think it's really about the reason I was recognized, I believe, is, transforming an organization in a year and working on what was already there and what makes it better. And so for me, that's the journey that continues. And so we have been lucky enough to receive funding recently. We have two organizations funding the Impact Lab right now. One is Wolf Associates Fund, which was the core, and then IBP is now funding our executive program. And so this is leadership development for executives in the nonprofit space. And again, same thing. You have coaches for executives in the for-profit space, $10,000 and up, but nonprofits often don't get that. And there's great groups and resources, but this program is really focused on values-based leadership. We have a mindfulness component. How do you set that strategy and kind of, go forward? And so if I can do that and make even more impact in the nonprofit space and serve closer to our mission, that's what's next for me. I think also our growing alumni program is really exciting for me too. It's not, some people they always say never graduate. And for us, it's really, please don't ever graduate. Right. Come back, be a part of this program, network, support our nonprofit sector, and stay connected.
Well, let me ask you this final question. Knowing this you're gonna be there for a while. We're at least all of us here in
for
Columbus.
a while, not as long as previous, but I'll be there. I'll be there for a minute. I'm gonna ride this one out to retirement.
All of us in Columbus want someone like you playing out this role for quite some time because of your impact. But what does legacy look like to you? Like when you finally get down the road and you're turning the baton over to the next person. What is it that you hope to leave behind?
For me?
For you?
I think we talked a little bit about optimism and maximizing. I mean, I hope that people see that the big picture ideas and the potential in people that you can bring to fruition without competing with other people, without stepping on toes, really with, that empathetic lens, the authentic lens of really doing the right thing in the space. I hope it's just partially leading by example, but I hope it's also the legacy of anybody who goes through the program while I'm running the program has an experience that, has the impact that we've been talking about. They feel they've had the proximity, the empathy, the impact. They're leading in a different way. And so every person that goes through, like 65 a year, will say, I went through under that program and now I'm, very civically engaged and community trustee for the future.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day. I know you're busy, but being able to pause just to come on and talk about leadership. And I want to say to you personally, thank you for what you do, because we do need people like yourself and others who are graduating from the program who are making our city a whole lot better. Because we see so many different things taking place, but sometimes it's the leaders behind the scenes that we don't see who are making some of the biggest decisions that impact us all in our city. And so again, to all of you, just remember, when you come to the leadership table, there's always room for you. We want to encourage you to please look into Leadership Columbus and whatever kind of supportive nature that you can give. You can sign up, you can become part of, or you can just hope that they continue to do the work that they're doing. We thank you again for joining us here at the Leadership Table. Until the next time, remember to always keep the faith as we keep in touch.
Foxland Media. Think big.